Black men do not fight hard enough to be a parent in their children's lives.
What are gunshots?
Just a question.
They do not.
Just a question. I am agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. But just a question, though.
He's only agreeing.
Why is it
that they have to fight?
These men have to fight. The fact that they have to fight is one thing. The fact that they're not fighting enough is another thing. So both things are correct. So I'm agreeing with you. These men are not fighting enough for their child. That's the thing, right? But why is it that virtually every man has to fight to see their child?
Why are you complaining about a problem that you created for yourself? I don't want to hear it. You created that problem.
Yes.
So now you're like, oh, I have to fight my way out of my own problems. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we not all adults?
I agree.
Is life not always what we want it to be?
Yeah.
You'll leave her to fight for herself, but you're like, oh, I ain't gonna fight for my kid. Why I gotta fight for my kid? Over a problem that you created yourself. When we could have all just been like, you know what? I'm good on the kids. Let me wrap it up. Let me at least get married first. Let me at least try to do the right thing.
Before we get started, Mike has on New Jays and he got his muscles out.
It's because Gab don't have the window open here. It's actually
we do
sauna today.
I want the outdoor signs. My bad.
No, we good. No.
All right, let's get it. Here we go. I saw you in the comments. As soon as I clicked the video, Pastor Mike Will, I said, oh shit.
Yeah. No, my whole thing is like, man, protect all spark. Because you know what? She's right? But they only give you this credit after they've messed up. But yeah, stop putting babies in these women, right? We are creating our own problems, right? She's right. Now that wasn't her point. Her point was to deflect from the conversation of why do men have to fight at all?
Facts.
That was the question. And then they do that little slick thing that they do. They create that straw man, right? Which is like, well, you should be responsible for whether or not you have the kid. Both of those arguments are arguments that men need to take control of. One, we are creating our own problems. Let's go ahead and start either snipping, checking the ovulation window, wrapping it up, right? Stop having babies with women that we have no intention of marrying. But back to the original point, like why are the dudes who are the happiest for being fathers, why are the dudes who are the best fathers in or out of the home, right? Why are the guys who are the most egalitarian, why are they having to fight for their children so hard, right? That's a legitimate question, and I think as black men, we just have a terrible press kit. Our press kit is just like it's the Pookie kit, right? Like this is what the average black guy is like, and the majority of black men are great fathers.
Look at this. See how far I got? Oh, I went to the whole episode, dog. I spent this morning listening to this episode.
How was it?
Interesting. I need you to do me a solid.
Yeah.
Read that title.
Are moms dating their own sons?
So interesting.
A mom's dating their own sons. I can read faster than that. It was actually moving slow.
Yeah, it was moving slow. That was what her podcast episode was about.
Yeah.
Her podcast was designed to trash black women. She made it very clear.
Yeah.
On black women raising sons to step in for their husbands, their boyfriends, or their fathers. Yeah. That's what her entire episode was. This black man who got on there pointed out something to her very early in the podcast. He said, you are using this time to shit on the fact that you date Pookies and that y'all have to deal with dating Pookies. I will say this. And they had a great conversation.
Yeah.
But when he said it early, I hate when people say, and it's not their fault, because when you get in a podcast, you will say something and you'll get off because you got the rest of the episode. He said it and it was so important, but he never comes back to it. And I'm 80% done with the episode, but he never goes back to, you are complaining about Pookies, and that's such a small percentage of black men.
Yes.
But he kept just going through. Now, I would say this. I knew everything about kids before I had my own. I knew everything about raising a child, right? It's so funny that you can feel that way. This woman has no kids.
Yeah.
So she spends an hour discussing raising kids, whether she's talking down on black women, and that is a disguise. The episode was supposed to be about that. That's only like 10% of the episode. The rest of the episode is her shitting on black men.
Well, we already know that we are like the dump, bro.
Absolutely. And it's like when he got there, he explained that. And then he was like, you dating Pookies. That's your problem. And then he spends the rest of the episode defending black men to her.
Yeah.
Explaining that, yo, no, I'm a divorcee. I have kids. I don't discipline my kids. I create, what was his term? It was amazing. He said, I don't discipline my kids. But basically he was saying like, yo, I create environments for my kids where I explain to them what's going on. He was like, we as a black community don't understand what discipline is because we think it's whooping their ass.
Yeah.
He said we think it's spanking them and yelling at them. And he was like,
well, I think future generations of, especially like with black men, out of all the black men I know, I only know one family that actually physically disciplined their kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm talking about family. So I mean, now I don't know what the ladies do. We don't really talk about discipline per se.
Yeah.
But I mean, hell, I think most of the women I know are married too. So again, like my spirit sometimes is a little bit different than what's projected on the internet.
Yeah.
But I think that whole like, spare the rod, spoil the child thing, right? I think we start understanding that in context. Like that's not meaning like, yo, beat your kids.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
facts. That wasn't what it meant. But, when you had people that was, coming out of an apartheid, being domestically terrorized for over 80 years, right? And then their grandparents were actually enslaved, right? Mm-hmm. They're also terrorized, right? You have a different type of raising that goes on versus when you have a free generation, right? Like I was born into a relatively free country. My parents was born into an apartheid, right? So I'm the first free generation, right? So I'm able to raise my child a lot differently than the way my parents was able to raise me.
Facts.
So anyway, back to that was Amita talk.
Amita, yeah.
I actually like her stuff. It'd be mad wrong, but I actually like listening to her pod. And that was on Mr. Let Go. That was actually a guest on her pod.
Yeah, it's not the worst episode. I just felt like I can tell when somebody is talking, especially because I was that person. I remember my sister used to roll her eyes so hard when I used to tell her how to raise her son.
Yeah. And
then as soon as mine came out, I go to her and I apologize.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this shit is wow.
Yeah.
This is the Wild West. Y'all really out here just surviving. She's like, yeah, I mean, that's what we doing out here. But so when I'm listening to her talk and she's like, no, kids like going to their dad house because y'all don't discipline them. And he's like, no, I talk to my kids. I create control environments where we don't have to do too much discipline. But he's like, and he tells her, he said, I create a controlled environment that when you come to my house, you already know how to act. He said, if I have to discipline you, it's because you're blatantly defying me. And he explains to her, women, y'all be with the kids and they just run amok because they don't respect you. And then he wants to talk about why kids don't respect black women. And it was interesting because he talked about his mom and how he had a great mom, but she used to let men come in and out.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, I had to grow up at 13. And he's like, and it's funny. He said, I never felt bad for my mom because she was a grown woman that made her own decisions that, finally I had to man the hell up and say, yo, I'm taking over. And she was like, so how did that work? And he said it worked out fine. But at 18, I was like, no, I'm done. I'm out. And he was like, now you got to figure it out because I gave you 5 years of taking care of your shit. Like whatever.
And the energy is different as well between, like men and women. Like sometimes like that disrespect is if you're at a high trouble level every day, eventually it drones out. Facts. Most of the time when men raise their voice, it's to catch the kids' attention. And then typically the voice lowers back down.
Facts.
Because it's like, all right, now we're communicating. So because I think sometimes we're going to get to this, right? The physical strength of men.
Oh gosh.
Like I think sometimes that people underestimate, the difference in strength between, males and females. And I think as kids, because they're pure, they understand that difference. So my homegirl, they have a newborn, her and her husband. And she was like, she felt like she was sick. So he kept the baby all night. She's like, she ain't hear him cry once all night. Right. So she was like, I kind of felt away. And I was like, look, I said, one of the things you got to understand, I was like, as men, when we're dealing with newborn, we have to be extra gentle because we basically have more torque than what women have. Right. So I was like, when you pick a kid up fast, you not really going to hurt the kid. I said, if a man comes in there and picks up a kid fast, he can pull an arm out of a socket.
Yeah.
Just our torque is different. So I was like, most of the time when men deal with babies or little kids, we're actually extra gentle Whereas the women are just they mom and they nurturing, right? I gotta clean your nose, right? Dad is coming over there and he's like, I'm being extra gentle with you because God
Absolutely.
forbid
Something happens.
something happens.
So rap.
It's a wrap.
DSS gonna be over here. We all cooked.
Yeah, we all cook. So it's like, I think sometimes that ladies forget that too when it comes to dad parenting. That like, yo, it's not that we're like just nicer on the kid. It's God forbid something happens to this child in my care.
Yeah, and then the other thing, and I said this before we dip from that topic. It is amazing how women uniquely find ways not to shit on other black women, because all of her complaints throughout this entire episode is about the product of being raised by a single black woman. Yeah. And good or bad, whatever she said good and whatever she said bad, it was
that's what it was about. The dude is not there.
And because she couldn't single out black women and say, hey, y'all are raising Pookies, because she couldn't, she took a small percentage of men and blamed black men for it, which was just amazing take. But like you said, our PR kid is trash.
PR kid is trash. And we're trying to make it better on here.
We're trying to. I want to welcome everybody to episode 130